Hello, my name is Darren C. Demaree, and I will be reading from Emily as Sometimes the Forest Wants the Fire. Emily has the length of a fox. I haven't the time to find a bluff, to overlook an expanse, and understand Emily. I am in the densest part of the woods with her now, the deep where you touch everything at once and believe in the small bits of your flesh that you can predict, the next tree that will move, and the next animal that will eat the next animal, and that shared breath of meat is as indelicate as closeness can be. Emily has a leveling of ground. Across the snow, the sea change of Ohio, the axe splits the wood as an empty threat to the whole world. But then again, hands can motion the life right out of this thing. Personally involved in the end of the world, what the living do is command the rags and muscles to be easy with pleasure, to take the blanket and pull it over all heads, to kick legs like an ornery child, a knowing child with a flat surface, to give in to an eyelid. I found Emily. That means I'm ready for the rest of you to close your eyes. Emily has the audacity of the red egg for Sam Roxas Chua. The sun is never white. The chest collects only breakable bones. Each new day carries with it a tribe so native to this moment, the wars do not have the time to fill our throats with a second cry. I look to focus my eyes on the landscape, and the fog that once hugged Ohio charges me. I relax my gaze, and I see Emily as a red egg paused on the impossible tip of love. I see her in defiance of all want. A table cannot starve. Emily as a bosque pear. There is a true shape, displaced and claimed by the delusion and the delusion's comrade, and if all that soil still tastes honeyed amidst the claim that all love is fruit, then whatever skin is left over, that is the skin Emily is wearing. She will always be a visiting blood held together by my poor metaphors. She drips, and I call it juice. She sings, and I call it a garden. I open my eyes, and I know all that's been ruined is my understanding. And I'm going to read one more from this book, the book we're featuring at Ohioana this year. It's called Emily is a Book of Endings, and I highly recommend, if you haven't read Leslie Harrison's A Book of Endings, please go to the Book Loft, find a copy, order a copy from them. They will send it to you. Her collection, A Book of Endings, is just incredible. You should get hold of it. Emily is a Book of Endings for Leslie Harrison. I chose Emily because I knew that if she chose me, I could prepare for death in a way that made my desperation to keep living something tangible. Now, with each child we have, I am cemented in the panic of the living. Now, since she keeps choosing me every morning, I am able to taunt mortality in a way that will leave claw marks in the fields of Ohio. How glorious it will be to be dragged from the living and to scream one name, to spit one name at my weakening grip, to expect the strength to return to me, just like the thousands of other times I've used her name to live longer. I wanted to thank Gary and the Book Loft for hosting this poetry reading. Thank everyone in Ohioana for fighting the good fight this year and making sure that we were able to put together at least a digital festival. To end my little portion of this reading, I'm going to read a poem that I've been reading to end every reading in this last year. I was lucky enough to write a poem to read at a friend's wedding. I was the official wedding poet. This is a poem that I'm never going to publish. I made a small broadside collection for the people in the wedding. But for this 1 year, in honor of them and my love and affection for them, I've been reading it to finish readings. And that year is almost up, so this poem is about to disappear for all that were not at the wedding. So I will read it now and give you that chance to take it with you. How thin this epic, this luxury of love, for Steve and Ashley on the day of their wedding. How thin this epic, this luxury of love that has flexed itself from the old roads to the highways, to the hiding places of Ohio, to the first time and the next time, the routine of love that is more action than the washing off of actions, the simple garden on the side of the simple home that roars flowers in spring, that holds on to flowers during the erasing of all seasons. I have planted my only lushness in hands I've asked to fill themselves with absolute black, to take my longing to be fed by love, to allow my tendrils to thicken, to tickle through the fingers that cannot tuck themselves away when I am as desperate for love as I am today, to ask, to promise the same thing in 7 different ways, and for them all to mean that you will not wash me off of you, that my smell and your smell will now be the same, that when I take off from any height, the first plume our neighbors will see is the plume of your dust, the skin cells of yours that I've collected through repetition and proximity, that I consider to be plumage, that I am wont to keep so much that I rarely fly away from you. Those neighbors will call us so far so good, and we will call each other nonsense names that mean everything, so that when we start to count the days that laughter cannot streak past our teeth, we can repeat that nonsense that means only you can save me right now, only you can save me, only you, and in the middle of that saving I will want more of you than you can turn into something new, something a fool can value during the long blinks of our life together, when I know nothing, so you present yourself as nothing to me, and I know that your hawk's glide of an effort to be a predator when I need to be a mouse is the exact reason I have laid low beneath the thinning epic, the luxury I considered to be dangerous until now, when you showed me that the only danger there is to not be taken away by that only wishes to carry you with the sharpness through the winds that can rush as much as they desire, because they will only ever change the seasons, and we are not a season. Thank you very much.
I'm going to start by reading a couple poems from my first book of poems called The Walking Man. This first poem is called The Hustler. I'm a big fan of the Jackie Gleason and Paul Newman movie, but this poem is only indirectly inspired by that, the Hustler. Down in a dank cellar where all the cues are warped, I choose the best with care, chalk it, and set my cigarette flat on the table's edge. I rack up the balls in a tight, bright triangle and break them with a sharp splat, skitter-scattering them in all directions over the green felt table. Nothing drops. I circle the felt like a stalking cat, find my spot, and crouch squinting for the kill. A flick of my stick and the 6-ball ducks into the corner pocket. My next 5 shots are snooker perfect. A hustler. I am on top of this table. I am the table, the balls, the cue, the game is all in your mind. Then my luck runs out. I flub a simple shot, so I try a chancy combination, although there is no one here but me, and I miss badly, leaving no good angles. I curse comprehensively. I can't even sink a straight-on shot. The world is absurd. We're all idiot balls, clicking our way into empty black pockets. We kiss and crack at random. Hitting, missing is all the same. We reel from wall to wall and laugh at our drunken gestures. To shoot or not to shoot, to clear the table or to leave it as it stands, makes no difference. I shrug, chalk my cue, and play the game out. This next poem is based on the time I lived in upstate New York in a stone house back against a forest. I had a large front yard with apple trees, and at night the deer came down to eat the apples. And so this poem is entitled At Dusk the Deer. At dusk the white-tailed deer come down from the forest, to graze in my front yard, an old pasture gone back to popple, where apple trees grow by a rip-rap wall. Moist muzzles drooling froth and juice, with pink tongues they lick each other's face and bolt every windfall. Near their habitual path I lie in hiding, ear cocked for deaf feet in the leaves. When a young buck comes up over the top of the hill, he almost steps on me, crouching in the tall grass. He sneezes in surprise, just like an Indian, and high-scuts it back down to where his shy doe waits. Then, to my surprise, he spreads his ears and prances with stately, high-stepping decision right at me. 6 feet away, he stops and stamps, trying to make me jump, but I freeze in my place, though my heart won't stay put. Suspiciously, he circles, keeping me in sight. Stopping, he tilts his head, seeking the best angle. His large brown eyes are alert and curious, not dull and yellow-streaked, roomy with resentment, like eyes I've seen at the zoo. As if he trusted me, he drops his head, browsing for acorns in the moss. I can see velvet nubs where his antlers will grow. Nostrils quivering, he lifts his head, nosing for messages. If I meant him any harm or hate, I know he'd smell my fear or hate. But I am calm and will speak when I can, though the feel is not right. My softest voice is not for them. Snorting alarm, they dance off in the dark and are gone. I'm reading from a recent chapbook entitled Night Moves in Ohio, which is based on my boyhood in Poland, Ohio, a suburb of Youngstown. The first poem I'm going to read, the first poem in the collection, is the title of a larger collection, a larger manuscript that I'm circulating, and it's called Steel Valley Elegy. I speak Steel Valley American. Once mills lined the Mahoning River from Youngstown Sheet and Tube Jeanette Blast Furnace to Briar Hill to Republic Steel in Struthers. Coal intensified to coke turned iron ore into molten ingots that were rolled into slabs, scarfed free of impurities, shaped for strength, bridges to span waters, girders for skyscrapers, tanks, ships, guns, and shells to win World War II, machines and factories for our bounty. The workers, honkies from Smoky Hollow, Slovaks from Nebo, Dagos, Polacks, blacks, dressed for combat, hard hats, safety glasses, asbestos coats, steel-toed boots. Beware of breathing tainted air. Open hearth blast furnaces, singed eyebrows, seared lungs, pants on fire, no metaphor. At the last whistle, dehydrated men headed for the taverns, on tap at each plant gate. Down Boilermakers, a shot of whiskey dropped in a mug of beer. Cashed checks played the bug, staggered home. Men made serious money making steel. A house with a lawn, a Ford or Chevy in the drive. Soot on windows meant food on the table. Mills created the weather. Skies dark in daytime, bright at night. Clothes hung in the cellar to avoid black rain. The city was called Little Chicago. 75 bombings, Youngstown tune-ups, as Cleveland and Pittsburgh mobsters blew each other apart to control the bug and other games of chance. Barbers charged $5 for a haircut, 10 to start your car. Crossing the bridge into town, I saw the Valley of Ashes in The Great Gatsby. Gray heaps of slag, bins of scrap metal, the fuming rusty-oared sulphurous river that might ignite at the flip of a match. Low corrugated buildings, topped by tall towers and bench stacks, burning off waste gas. Serpentine trains shunted into side yards, scotched into freight cars, unloaded one by one. My Czech girlfriend, whose father worked in steel, spread a blanket on her backyard above the valley. As evening fell, the infernal glow of the mills became magical. Yellow flames from smelters made airborne soot sparkle, blotting out the stars. White-hot slabs glided down conveyor belts. The screeching, clanging, industrial din had a percussive rhythm. Teens in love, for all we knew our kisses lasted hours. Now the mills are gone. The only people left misplaced their car keys. Still I celebrate the Steel Valley's brutal lost beauty. This is a poem about when I was about 10, 12 in Poland. The Korean War was going on, and as a kid I thought it was a great thing. But I discovered a new interest that this poem discusses. It's called How I Left the War and Took Up Basketball. The first time he whipped a behind-the-back pass to the open man on his blind side, Bob Cousy knew he was a star. A small man with big hands, quick as a poet, his pinpoint passes scored baskets. Me, I practiced down in our pitch-black cement cellar, dribbling with either hand in the dark. Sometimes I sat with my eyes shut, rubbing the nubbles, spinning the ball on my fingers, and whispering to myself. This was near the end of the Ohio phase of the Korean War, when coming home at dusk from the Battle of Hidden Valley and Lee Run Creek, I ran head first into a barbed wire fence, slicing my skin at the hairline. My mother screamed to see the web of blood, while I searched my skull in the mirror, praying for a scar. At first I shot from the hip, pushing off on my left leg to launch a giant step up with my right, bouncing the ball off the board to drop through the hoop. By junior high I had a fall-away jump shot and basketballs on the brain.
Hi, my name is Marcus Jackson. I hope all of you are well in these strange, difficult times. I'm going to read some poems. I'm going to read a few from my second book, and I'm going to read some new poems from a book that I'm working on. I'll start with a few poems from my second book, which is called Pardon My Heart. And I think I'll start with two companion poems that I originally wrote as Shakespearean sonnets. They eventually broke out of that form and kind of took on their own life formally. But they're contrasting love poems. One's about being head over heels in love, and one is about being completely heartbroken. This first one is called When in Love. You're a drooling fool. You got a mouth full of diamonds and you're smiling. Your body is a key tied to a kite bitten by lightning. Troubling memories have dug escapes from the cell blocks of your brain. You're a piece of luminous fruit yet to be bruised. You gasp the way waves at night crash, and you moan like a full moon. You're something extremely expensive, carried by a clumsy kid. Spring, its worm-gorged birds and red-bud trees can't even keep up with your jubilee. And then here's the accompanying poem called When Out of Love. You're a rowboat at the center of a desert. You're tongueless and all your words blur. Your hands are blind birds. Your mind is a long ride on the wrong bus. Your sleep is brief, and the smallest sounds are rifle rounds cracking prairie air. The police have your cheek against their car hood and they're cuffing you. The sun is the sourest fruit. The stars are silver dust at the bottom of a robbed strongbox. The children playing in the alley scream like dropped rucksacks full of glass. You're a missing minor, and you dig so far, the dark holds you better than a mother. I think I'll bounce to some new poems and then maybe come back to one more from the book. So the book that I'm working on now is essentially just trying to make some type of extended lyric recovery for the recurring voice that is the persona of the poems throughout obviously a very fractured, confusing, bleak, though still naturally beautiful world, and particularly America. And all these 4 poems from the new book are in the first section and they come sequentially. This first one's called Young Monk. I knew a boy named Sean whose mother loved successive men that charmed and tortured her. One day in 9th grade, Sean brought a luminous hunting knife to lunch and put it near the throat of the dean, who had always seemed the wryest, most unmovable force, as he supervised and distrusted us for no other reason than the fact that we were darker and more angelic than he. Sean, breaking a bit of skin on the side of the dean's neck, soon got choked by the officer assigned the daily patrol of our hectic first-floor halls. Institutions later absorbed Sean, and I wrote him some letters each year, letters of update about certain classmates and kin, letters in which it felt impossible to plant much truth or redemption. My hand and pen pausing abundantly, the blank paper like a mute field I wandered, and somewhere beyond, upon a hill that rose above roads and foliage, my friend lived like a young monk made to study decades in some state-funded monastery built in praise of the godlessness of pain. Loneliness and solitude is so often stigmatized, frowned upon in Western capitalistic culture. But I find that isolation, solitude is usually the most artistically productive and spiritually revealing state. So I wrote this poem about that. It's called A Loneliness So Pure. The world encouraged me to complete my doctorate in shamelessness. You'll hurt to not be part of all this interface and commerce, I was warned. Though, as soon as I declined, I was rewarded with a loneliness so pure that my ears could not be found by bothersome words. And my blood felt fed only by the air and the light that lives beneath the glass of greenhouses. My family, my former lovers, and the authorities tried to talk to me, to sway me toward buildings whose entrances have stern signs. But I gazed patiently at everybody's face, each lit from the same failing fire, and I left them speechlessly, my movements constituting a new species of worryless wind. One time I found myself crying in a diner when I was alone, and I quickly realized that there was an interesting dynamic of, I didn't want anybody to come up to me and console me. I kind of just wanted to feel my grief and my troubling feelings and be still given space. So I wrote this poem trying to portray that. It's called A Type of Crying. You can cry quite long in a diner without much interruption, assuming the diner is only moderately populated. The decor is outdated and immaculate, and you are capable of the type of crying during which tears do not disrupt your posture. You must hold inside a muscular sorrow and a sense of endurance for torture bequeathed to you by your shattered elders, or given to you by years of grim affairs, ruthless colleagues, and duplicitous politicians. The diner's specialty must be a side plate of quartered potatoes, seasoned and fried in a manner that proves the cook's grasp on mortality's childless brilliance. Weeping is not possible in this scenario unless you can invent sitting there in an upholstered booth with full visibility, a revolutionary weeping that is soundless and somehow calls all the ghosts of the universe to sing their remarkable dark-mouthed songs. This poem is a ghazal, the ancient Persian form, and I always wanted to write a ghazal that had the refrain word paper, because I just always loved the word paper. This ghazal is called Paper. I'm legally changing my name to Paper. No surname, middle name, or salutation, just paper. As a scuffed up, silent, distracted kid, I stared down at the city-supplied paper. Our teacher walking the aisles, seemingly hoping we'd confess some kind of crime on the paper. Teenaged and drunk on a summer street, we yelled or muttered about feeding our pockets with paper. My former probation officer glowed while he instructed me and caressed a pile of paper. Monthly, dusk hushing the windows, I checked my child's unpaid birth costs, the hospital's mailed profuse paper. And then I'll end with this poem, which is the title poem to my second book. It's called Pardon My Heart. Pardon my heart if it ruins your party. It's a large American heart and has had a good deal to drink. It's a pretty bad dancer. Too much feeling, too little technique. It may sing some godless hymns about ousting armies of loneliness, about marching victorious to wives and towns beneath a heart-colored dusk. Pardon my heart if it closes its eyes for hours, whispering rapture over and over. Pardon my heart if it laughs too loudly, or if it tells many of its stories too ardently. Pardon my heart if it rests an arm across you or your friend's shoulders. Touch allows my heart to trust that it's not imagining your company's loveliness. Pardon my heart if you have to kick it out. After you've muzzled the music and brightened the lights to tidy. My heart will ignore and keep doing its little two-step, a glow in the middle of the room, never happier to have nowhere else to go. Thank you.
Role play. As I take the part of this character in this play of life, my role as a girl transforms to that of a young lady, then to that of a woman. It continues to mature, shaping my part, admitting to those spectators that this role comes natural. Although I have spent countless hours, numerous days, many weeks preparing, rehearsing my lines, practicing the facial expressions, learning the emotions, understanding the science behind the walk, gathering the chemistry of the talk, suppressing the secrets of the eyes, time dedicated to illustrating the look, the manifestation, the appearance. It's hard work, acting all day. New environment equals new scene. New chapter means a new display of growth. Having more knowledge of the do's and the don'ts. Grasping the dramatic piece. Being one with the theatrical performance. I'm no pro, no professional, no connoisseur. Regardless, I have to identify with the drama, recognize the comedy, empathize with the altar to tragedy, jolting physically, psychologically, from scene to scene. Preparation is crucial. I don't want to be the oddball in a sea of faces. I'm prepared, stumbling on my lines. You have to be ready when you walk out on that stage, willing to confront the viewers. Otherwise, your character will lose face. How do you expect the audience to relate to you with a non-convincing performance? Practice is king, rehearsal is compulsory, and the conclusion is the climax. What will the spectators associate with the character? How will they remember the play? I am the awakening of the sun and the shining of the moonlight. I am the chirping of the birds and the whispers of the wind. The sway of leaves and the morning dew on the grass is who I am. The pleasures of water as they move along the coast, I am. The greeting of earth, wind, and fire is met on my turf, as I am who I am. And they are a part of me as the element within is that has manifested and grown and evolved and became the foundation to life as we know it. And I am the air you breathe and the breath you take and the eyes you use to see. I am in your direct line of vision as I am also in your peripheral. And even though you may not be able to see me, I do see you. And my whispers while silent are elevated in commotion. And I hope you are listening because I am. I am the light on a good day and the darkness on a gloomy night. And while you sleep, I lay awake and hover amidst. I am black, I am white, I am gray. I am. I am him, I am her. I am. I am who I am. Who are you? Shattered. I've loved a lot, but I've lost even more. Pieces of me scattered throughout this city, this state, this nation. Broken pieces. Shattered pieces. Used pieces. Abused pieces. Translucent pieces. Pieces that I couldn't put back together even if I tried. Pieces that I know are missing from inside. Some bigger than others, some just a little bit more meaningful. Those pieces. Damn those pieces. Making my wholeness incomplete, my mental broken, and my heart cold. Freezing cold. I thought eventually I would stop losing these pieces, misplacing them, having them taken away from me. I thought I could pick up the pieces and put it back together like Humpty Dumpty and seal the cracks, the marks, the imperfections, and make it look all shiny and new again, but damn those pieces. Scattered all around, being walked on and danced on like a scum on the ground. Damn those pieces for blending in with the trash and looking like dirt. Damn those pieces, all those pieces. So many pieces. How did I lose so much of myself along the way? Damn those pieces.
Welcome. My name is Jim Reuther, and I'm the author of the book Gunky's Adventures in the Land of Must Believe. It's a series of 26 short stories, adventure tales, each preceded with a short poem or ditty. And I have the privilege today of being able to recite 6 of my favorites. We shall begin with a lucky stone with 1 hole. This one is inspired by my late mother, who told me that I needed to be in touch with one of my loves, and that was nature. It's entitled Dearest Winter Trees. Infinite is my fascination of a leafless tree's imagination, with masterpiece rainbow of the colors brown and singular intricacy up and down, no matter the brightness of day or night. My heart races seeing its silhouette slight. Trees. Poem number 2 is brought to you by a 2-hole lucky stone. This one was inspired by my many adventures into the wood. It's entitled Unseen. Witness a glorious visible trick. Nature blindfolding, visibly thick. Out of nowhere dancing wisps appear, suspended silent in still crisp air. Translucent pillows jockey to haze, to mystify, beautify, dazzle and daze. Focus your senses on this joyous event, dreamlike scenes meant to circumvent. Fog. Number 3 is brought to you by a 3-hole lucky stone. Number 3 was inspired by my late father. On his last few days with us, shared with me one of his gifts. And he said that he received the gift of being able to see every sunrise for over half a century. And this poem is called Ever Rising. Pause in cool darkness, quietly still, for glorious curtain raiser to remove the chill. Elevating with an ever-brightening glow, black to gold floating upward slow. Nature's distant spatial daffodil silently delivers its spectacular thrill. Do not fear, it will not forget. See it rise to see it set, never failing. Thank you, Pop. Number 4 comes to us, introduced by a 4-hole lucky stone. And it's inspired by the universe. It's entitled, Behold Upwards. Skyward approached with anticipation, to view overhead portals to infinity. Gratification instant, breathtaking. Perceive the silent dark canopy of delight. Dearest perforated ink, shining in or shining out, multiplying and revolving, dimmest as wondrous as brights. Your gifts are transmitted, joy and peace to all souls. Stars. Number 5 comes to us, yes, by a 5-hole lucky stone. And this one is inspired by something we all share these days. It's called stress. This is my way of dealing with stress. Join with me. Inhale, lifting. Exhale, drifting. Relaxing your body whole. Suspend thinking. Ignore blinking. Releasing your earthbound soul. Eyes wide open, staring down, hovering weightless all around. Tranquil, timeless, quiet, calm. Steep yourself within its gentle balm. You relax now? I'm levitating. Number 6 is brought to you by, yes, a lucky stone with 6 holes. This is inspired by my profession. Yes, I am a PhD chemical physicist, and I spent my life studying fire. This one's entitled Inspirational Inferno. Eternal is our curiosity of your spiritual luminosity. You shine and sparkle, oh, what a thrill, as colorful and lively as a daffodil. You frolic and flare, shimmer and sway, mysterious transient, while trying to say that with each wisp of bright golden blaze, hope will flash from gloom's dark haze. Your beam makes it clear when despair is near and melancholy darkens your head. Watch and believe, and your mind will relieve with joy and illumination instead. And that is why candles are lit. I want to thank the Book Loft and Ohioana for the opportunity to do this video and to share some of my poems with you. Keep calm and gunky on, for reason, peace, and love will prevail. Be seeing you.
Good evening. I'm James Allen Riley, and it's my pleasure to join the 2020 Ohioana Book Festival and the Book Loft for their virtual book festival this year. I'd like to read some poetry from my new book, Broken Frequencies, published by Shadeland House Modern Press in Lexington, Kentucky, and a couple of new poems. We'll start with a poem from the book. This is titled Theories of Elegance. I remember the sky in Kentucky at night cut from the horizon and hung before the stars like comfort and desire, her singular need for assurance. We are told there are, in most cases, not one star, but two, lovers in constant motion, one around the other, but light too often refracts. Distance, like memory, can be deceiving. And so it seems that even the stars are paired, locked in mutual rotations and whirling through the universe in strange harmonies we could never imagine. Always before, when a star fell, I thought, meteorite if it strikes the ground among these brown hills. Otherwise, we say meteor. Either way, the dark sky would be suddenly bright, a camera flash behind the eyes. And when the darkness returned, the image reappeared of my hand reaching out before me. It is an image of myself, the shadow of a tree beside the house, our lives together, the unexpected truth in a field of lies. I have learned the best theories are descriptive in nature. They offer no truth or explanation, only abstract notions of elegance which apply to both distance and proximity, a fraction derived from the same common denominator, coming and going as if light and heat were a product, one from the other, caught in a constant motion but never striking the ground. When we met that first night, it rained so hard you couldn't call it weather. As the children are taught. The next morning, I found this jagged scar on an oak so thick I could have put my arms around the fractured trunk and found nothing. Harmony is nature's only true desire. Lightning never strikes the ground. It rises like an outstretched hand. A diffraction of separate charges come together in a moment of sight. How do we explain such strange phenomena? The summer lightning when there are no clouds, a positive theory of negative circumstance, good and evil in a binary flux of ions. The warmth rises and glows on the horizon, spreading slow against the chamomile sky. I touch your warm skin and settle beneath the sheet. What arguments exist for these lights that whisper us together, calling us away from this Kentucky farmhouse on this summer night? The only need I feel for explanation has been explained by the touch of your hand. Theory cannot save us from ourselves. We must sacrifice our bodies to see by our own light. This next poem is titled, Grief as a Body of Water. Depth is not the problem once you're in over your head. The hillside behind the house reaches for an empty sky, one hand outstretched from the shadow of bare trees. There's the sound of water coming down the mountain and the sound of heavy rain. Cars passing slow waves on the highway in the distance. You can get too close to some things to see them clearly for what they are. Or people drown in their own bathtub and get swept out to sea by the tide. Most bodies of water appear calm on the surface, almost contemplative. The dark hills in the distance, the quiet reflection of trees tapping you on the shoulder as if to say, you are not where you're supposed to be. Sitting in an empty room for 20 minutes, wondering why no one else came to the meeting. Drifting to sleep that night, you realize you were the only one who was in the wrong place at the wrong time. That your meeting went on without you. Never mind, it took you all day to realize your mistake. We sometimes find ourselves in strange and unexpected places, confused by the ambient light, the weight of water in our hands. What did you think was going to happen? That you could see through all that water? that the opposite of rising to the surface was not sinking to the muddy bottom? The answer is always the same. Depth is not the problem once you're in over your head. The problem is one of proximity, being too close to see clearly what is right before your eyes, the open palm of your hand, the sound of your voice calling. The only motion is the motion of silence. The only green, the stick thistle and weeds you should have cut but didn't. You should have cleared the brush away from the house. You sit at the window and watch the rain. A slow drizzle soaks the patio, the dead grass beneath the jagged stems of the winter roses. Brown leaves are matted to the sidewalk. Hydrangeas cut the ground. Floating is the last sensation. The pain numbed by morphine in steadily increasing doses. You can get too close to some things and not realize your mistake. Sitting alone in an empty room, thinking you're getting better. I don't know what else to say. How could you come to this moment and not be prepared for its coming? The surrounding hills, the body of water. My last poem is titled Dream of Herd Immunity. It was the dream of herd immunity they sought, holding a tattered map beneath the lamp in search of crumbs to lead them away from this gingerbread house, where the stench of burning hair and cries from those most vulnerable were surrounded by silence and risk, the unfolding of small hands. Their ignorance may be legend, but they have an ethos for survival, the light shimmering umber and ochre in the distance, the heat rising from these dark woods that hold the past like a child by the hand. It's not the threat so much as the discomfort for most, the thought of restricted travel, as if there were not a plenitude left scattered behind each step, 6 feet being the measure of most graves, the commitment and casual glance beneath this canopy of candy where the young continue to party, jar full of juju beans to the first diagnosed from those in fun for the young and the young at heart. Their tattoos, a parchment of skulls, for those of us who don't believe in masks. Dousing the fire and tamping the wet ashes from the front parlor to the back room where the oven is still warm to the touch. Where unsavory events are recorded in real time by those with nothing to lose. Listen, the celebration has begun, but the balloons at the party are black balloons, rising from the torn scraps of a leather scroll like the raised voices of children singing in unison, their open mouths pronouncing the future dark rave. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kezia Sproat, and I'm reading from my new book, "'Tis Well." The first poem is September 12th, 2001. From a south window in a house of ruin, an early line of light along the ground, a shaft of sun, a spear of brightness crosses under pines. Morning slices through the orchard, where no orchard is, but was. Still, an orchard blooms and feeds hummingbirds of memory. The second poem is September 11th, 2002, a year later. It's High Bank. Another hawk soared this morning. We walked to the river. We came back for the reading of names. A mile of 10-foot corn, stalks still green, ears gold, white, each scarved in brown silk. Come back for the reading of names. Hawk brother, lazy as ever, relaxed on the updraft, played with the wind, as hawks may, as a hawk can. come back for the reading of names. WVXU Cincinnati, the day full of color, pinks at east reflect west, 500 greens stripe the horizon, helping blues, as many textures in the hills. One drip of rain at dawn, a little wind, just a little, where a Shawnee warpath runs the other side. We came back for the reading of names. We came back. The third poem, also about 9/11, is September 11, 2003, The Pendulum at Shawnee State. In my next life, I would like to understand mathematics. The coyote howls, lovely as God on a summer evening. Sine theta, where theta is latitude of any location, times 360 degrees, gives the answer. My old brown dog growls in his sleep. He hears the coyote. All three of us lavishly privileged on the evening. I'm sorry, I can't find the next poem. Oh. The next poem is Driving Up from Piketon. It's a memorial to my brother. Sunday night, Cornelia tells us, look at that cloud, one dark above the other. See, the dark is a mountain, the other fog. Columbus is in high mountains, overshadowed by high ones, lowering too close to the city. Or it can be a tidal wave, makes driving more interesting. Cherokee wagons on the Trail of Tears. In my new red Oldsmobile, I must now imagine, give back, go back to 1801. Give thanks to the Lord for this much of the day. Flemish painters all drew distant hills blue, near ground yellow-brown, middle distance clean green. Before us, on a hill east of Edina, sits evening, fine as by a Flemish master. Huge round new hay bales rolled and wrapped on it. A flock of great sheep, soft, cool, brown, round, quiet, on a pure green twilit hill. You and your young, strong sisters scratched and pulled square bales, once onto wagons, helping farmhands in the summer heat, gathering in then, as we are gathered now, between home and this same river. You and I rolled bales and ready, tucked in for the night, for the morning, the comforting hills still, blue, but not distant. Thank God every straw, every point of the day. It's okay. Porches always fall first. Faces sag too. Brains cloud. Psyches droop, and it all falls. Later, the house, thick stone, will come back. The wall stands solid, true to its brother wall, angles right and deemed in fashion. Children unheard, undreamed of, Sleep safe when the winds come roaring. The sky blackens, corn lies flat in the field. The wall will stand between the West and its young. Years or centuries later, someone may come, build another porch, the house still there, okay with the new as with the old, as unbent as Horatio, or the plays of Shakespeare reinterpreted